Hello, welcome back to the podcast. Today I'm going to be doing a little bit of a recap on my recent Parasite cleanse, my recent gut cleanse. This is something that I do every single year to make sure that my gut, my health, my immune system is in a good place because I work so hard to get me to this point. And it's not this one and done thing where you heal your gut once and then it's healthy forever. We're up against so many things in this modern world. And at the end of the day, we are animals. And just like you would expect to maybe deworm your pet, you can do it in a more holistic way, by the way, rather than the pharmaceuticals, the medications. But we forget that we're just big animals and we are exposed to a lot of different bugs. Your risk factors do increase when you go through times of stress because that weakens your immune system and that then allows these opportunistic bugs to take over. That's why not everyone has symptoms. Not everyone has to do an annual parasite cleanse, but a lot of people can benefit from it. And I'm going to use the term parasite cleanse and gut protocol interchangeably because the thing is, with the types of products and herbs that I use, they are working on a bunch of different pathogens, the different organisms. So the herbs aren't just anti-parasitic, they're antiviral, antifungal, antibacterial. They support the liver. So it's like a nice full body cleanse, reset. It changes it in the year when I do it. Sometimes I do it in January, and this time for some reason I did it a little bit later in August, just before my holiday. And I'm going to share how it went because this isn't my first rodeo, but there were definitely some symptoms that came up. So I'll share how to know whether to push through or not. I'll give you an overview of the type of approach that I take. I'm not going to go into specific products and doses and all of that because it is individual to the person. I do recommend testing your gut with something like an organic acid urine test that looks at different bacterial and yeast metabolites, or a stool test that's a bit more specifically looking at the intestines. I did my annual lab testing back in January and then just for some reason didn't get around to doing my gut protocol. But I finally did, and I'm so glad that I did. I always come out the other side feeling even better. I also try to time it around a full moon, and I go a little harder with the doses for everything at that point once I'm a few weeks in because things like parasites are more active around the full moon. So you can go a little bit harder and just get more of an effect during that time. I added a few coffee enemas in there, but let me give you some signs and symptoms that you might need some support in this area. I have done probably over 15 gut protocols in my life, maybe more, but not all of them were successful. I was doing them probably from 2014 to 2020, just multiple every single year. I was doing stool tests all the time, spending a ton of money, and I just wasn't getting the results that I wanted. It always felt better when I would take antimicrobials and antifungals and when I'd support my liver. But I was getting to the point where I had to ask, why do I need to keep doing this? Why is my gut not actually healing? Why am I just feeling better then as soon as I stop, my symptoms come back? And then it wasn't until 2020 when I tested for mold, figured all that out, that I was being exposed to toxic mold. That was actually keeping my immune system suppressed. And I also had a lot of energetic blocks, subconscious blocks. That's when I started to get into meditation and mindset, visualization, that whole world, because I realized I never cried, I didn't process my emotion, I didn't like being vulnerable and open and expressing myself. So I started to go down that line of personal development and spiritual journey as well. And that definitely helps everything because health is holistic. And when it comes to these bugs and pathogens, my immune system was so suppressed because things like trauma and unreleased emotions can also live within the body, suppress your vitality. And as your vitality drops, that allows then these bugs to start to take over. So eventually you do probably need to use some antimicrobials. These are herbs or there are pharmaceuticals that can knock down this pathogen load as well. There's a time and a place for antibiotics or an actual anti-parasitic medication, but I usually prefer to do the natural things first because there's less side effects and they are just more widely effective and broad spectrum. So if the yeast levels or the parasite levels have gotten to this point, you probably need to knock them down. But if your immune system is still suppressed, that's why either the protocol is unsuccessful and you still feel bad, you still have symptoms, or maybe you have some relief, but then as soon as you stop, the overgrowth grows again, the candida comes back, you just never fully clear the pathogen. It's probably because your immune system is suppressed. I've tested on a stool test before, multiple times my secretory IgA level, and it's still one of the lowest that I've ever seen, probably in 2015, 2016, when I first started doing stool testing. It was almost at zero. Bearing in mind the reference range is between 1 and 2,000 is optimal levels on the GI map that I use with clients. So mine was really low, really suppressed. That was a combination of factors at the time. At that point, I wasn't addressing the mineral side of things. I wasn't strengthening my body up, opening detox pathways beforehand. I mean, I wasn't even taking binders during these antimicrobials. I didn't know about the histamine component and how I needed to stabilize my mast cells because I was taking these really strong products, having awful detox reactions. One time I passed out, nearly hit my head. Well, I did hit my head on the radiator, knocked myself out, and that was just one extreme example. But my detox reactions were quite severe, and I was just really aggravating my histamine and mast cell reactions because we weren't taught at college at that point. I don't know if the content has changed now, and even the practitioners that I was working with at the time, they weren't really doing things in the right way. And there's been a lot of research come out since, and I think it's quite well known now that you should really be taking binders when you're killing off all of these bugs. And I also didn't know that I had mold at the time, so I was trying to detox, but I was fighting against this toxic mold that I was inhaling every single day as well. So no wonder it wasn't successful. My nervous system was just not in a fit place to get the results at that point. But then when it came to 2020, even though I'd been trying to heal my gut for years prior, it wasn't until I moved and started to do this deeper work, mineral balancing, really working on detox and drainage. I implemented things like infrared sauna really carefully. I did things like parasite cleansing, I detoxed the mold, I built up my body as well. I started to address these subconscious blocks and energy side of things, basically all the things that I do now with my one-to-one clients. It wasn't until then that I started to see the results. And within 6 months, definitely, I felt a shift with my digestion. Not only digestive symptoms, acid reflux, constipation, bloating, those were my main ones. I also sometimes struggle with loose stools and a lot of undigested food in the stool, just a whole host of complaints. But the fact that my gut was unhealthy was also reflecting in my skin. I had awful acne, I had hair loss, I had a lot of PCOS symptoms, my cycles were just infertile, just anovulatory. I was having a bleed, but I wasn't actually fertile at that point. So much brain fog, a lot of food sensitivities, joint pain, fatigue, the list could go on. But when I really did gut healing in the right way, it started to have an effect. And it can take time because I'd been sick for many, many years prior to that. But when I did it right, it meant that everything started to improve. And because I had a lot of infections and overgrowths, those initial rounds of healing, it did take about 4 to 6 months of working on my gut intensely back then. But now it's around a month every year that I do. So I'm not doing a 4 to 6 month thing every year anymore. I did that bulk of the work. I got the majority of my improvements then. And then you just don't let it slide. You don't just stop everything and never look at your gut again. Even though I'm not symptomatic anymore, I still know the importance of being proactive and keeping your results and maintaining your results whilst they're in a good place rather than letting things slide very slowly. Symptoms start to come back. I've not worked this hard on my health and spent all of that money now just to let things get back into that place. Not that they would, because my life, I live it very differently to what I did back then, but just being exposed to stresses and environmental toxins and just living in the modern world, you are going to be exposed to things that can damage the gut as health conscious as you are. The most common things in terms of risk for parasite infections, we'll start with that one. They aren't just something in a third world country. They are everywhere, and your risk is higher if you have traveled to a third world country, if you've ever had food poisoning, if you have pets, if you spend a lot of time outdoors, if you go open water swimming, wild swimming, you're in the soil, you like gardening. But even if you've never left the country or done any of those things, if you go to a restaurant and the person handling your food has just been back from Thailand, they got food poisoning, they're contaminated parasites, and then they're preparing your food. That's how you can pick them up. I know it's little bit gross, but it's true, and you might not get symptoms right then and there with food poisoning or an upset stomach, but these bugs can just lay dormant in the system. Then you might go through some stress at work, and then a few weeks later your gut's playing up, or maybe your rosacea, your eczema starting to flare, and you just don't make the connection between the two, but it could definitely be possible. So those are some risk factors for parasites, but you can also have a yeast overgrowth or SIBO, bacterial imbalances. There's a term called dysbiosis, which is just a general imbalance of good and bad bacteria. The goal isn't to not have any bad organisms in there. It should actually be an 80-20 good to bad ratio. We're not aiming for 100% perfect, zero yeast, zero parasites. That's not even possible or healthy. But a lot of people have started to have a shift in that ratio where there's just more bad guys, not enough good guys to outweigh that. And then these bugs often grow together. So when there's one imbalance, it starts to play into others. And then you just end up with your gut's an absolute mess, and it's just wreaking havoc on everything. And if you're working on your hormone health, let's say you're struggling with your periods, your skin, hair loss, weight, thyroid, anything like that, your gut can be driving it all. Even if you have zero digestive symptoms, you never have, doesn't matter. Some of the worst gut health and stool test results I've ever seen are from people with the least digestive symptoms, which sounds crazy, but I've seen it time and time again. Instead, the imbalances are manifesting as fatigue, joint pain, allergies, eczema, endometriosis, painful periods, rather than acid reflux and a bloated belly. I just want to check, are you addressing the healing foundations? Not sure what I mean? Well, these are the important factors that I believe that you need to address in order to be in optimal health and overcome your stubborn health issues and symptoms, whether that's chronic digestive issues, acne, hair loss, period problems, weight gain, anxiety, fatigue, I could go on. Because I want as many of you as possible to have this life-changing information, I've bundled together 6 of my juiciest and info-packed masterclasses priced at just £111. Not only are you getting these recordings, which are between 60 and 90 minutes long each, on the following subjects: the power of the subconscious mind, stress, trauma, and the nervous system, supporting your female menstrual cycle, mastering your metabolism, optimizing sleep, gut health and detox. You're also going to receive my healthy groceries shopping list and my favorite non-toxic products guide, which are both usually reserved for my one-to-one clients. Whether you're brand new to the holistic healing world or you've been trying to work on things for a while but feel stuck, I can guarantee there's something within this content that will help you to understand your next steps and what you're missing. Sometimes it's something so foundational that's being overlooked. Get instant access to the Foundations bundle today for just £111 by clicking the link in the episode show notes, and I can't wait to hear about what you've learned. Grab your pen and paper to make notes and get started today. The other risk factors for picking up or developing SIBO and yeast overgrowth, a little bit different to parasite infections. It can come from antibiotics, post-antibiotic use, pesticides in the food, which act as low-dose antibiotics, medications like birth control pill, which can have a similar effect on the gut microbiome, stomach acid blockers, omeprazole, different medications could start to disrupt the gut lining. If you're suppressing and weakening your stomach acid through mindless eating or some of these medications, even over-the-counter things like Gaviscon and Tums and Rennies, they're weakening your stomach acid, and then that doesn't sterilize your gut properly. Your stomach acid is one of the first lines of defense. This strong acidic stomach should kill off a lot of the bugs, helps us digest our food, keeps our upper gut free of fermentation and bacteria and overgrowths. So if you weaken your stomach acid, Zinc deficiency, sodium deficiency, B vitamin deficiency can also contribute to low stomach acid as well. H. pylori bacterial infections can. These are some risk factors too for gut disruption. And we all have our own individual genetic weak link, so to speak. Some people's guts are really, really strong actually, but it's more that when their body's stressed or inflamed, it's the lower back or headaches that come from that flare up. So for a lot of people, it's the gut, and if you have digestive issues, very obvious ones, then that's a given. But I'm just saying, don't rule out the fact that you could have gut issues just because you don't have any digestive symptoms. If you have any of those other skin, immune system, hormone, mood symptoms, energy issues that I mentioned before, your gut could still be playing a role. I offer stool testing and that organic acid test that I mentioned earlier with my one-to-one clients. So if you want to see exactly what's going on, like I did earlier in the year. For me, there was nothing major because of all of the work and the upkeep that I do with myself. There was some slight couple of bacterial elevations. The test is never going to be perfect, but there was a little bit that I could work on. And I remember that my digestive enzyme marker was a little bit weak, which makes sense. At the start of the year, I went through a breakup and had quite a bit of stress with that. I mean, I couldn't eat properly for a couple of weeks, and I did the test not long after. So there was some work to be done, but I don't really have any symptoms from that and bounced back quite quickly with my appetite and health and energy, thankfully. But I usually, in previous years, had done more of a prep phase before, but this time, because I feel good and it was summer, I was like, I'll just go into it, I'll be fine. And I was in general okay, but I did have some detox reactions, some Herxheimer reactions, they're called, which is when you're using these products and herbs or medications to kill off the infections, or imagine an overgrown garden full of weeds, it's like you're pruning them back. So it's not like an antibiotic where it just goes in and detonates everything, good and bad. They're way more selective. They kind of know what the bad bacteria is and starts to reduce that. You can overdo it and abuse them. If you pound oregano oil at a high dose for 6 months straight, you are going to start to deplete your good bacteria, but you don't need to be worried about depleting your good flora. And a lot of people do have overgrowths, but this is where testing can come in. Bloating can be due to high levels of bacteria or low levels of good bacteria. The treatment plan would differ then a little bit. This is why testing can be really, really useful, but also working with a skilled practitioner based on your health history, your current symptoms, they should be able to get a pretty good understanding as to what's going on. If you've already done 3 rounds of antibiotics recently and 2 other recent gut protocols, it might be that you're starting to get into the low levels of good bacteria phase. Whereas if you have never done a gut protocol in your life, haven't been on antibiotics for a while and have a lot of gas, bloating, that's more likely indicating to me that you have an overgrowth. But testing will always help you to confirm and actually saves time and money and guesswork in the long run when you know exactly what you're targeting. There's certain herbs actually as well that are more anti-parasitic versus anti-candida. So for parasites, things like wormwood and black walnut hull are a bit more specifically for parasites. General antibacterial things are garlic and oregano. Garlic extract is called allicin. And then antifungal things, a bit more specific for fungus, is caprylic acid, undecyclinic acid, those types of things. So I prefer to use blends of herbs, and I don't have one company, one product that I use for every single gut protocol with every client, and even myself, I like to switch it up. I'm way more intuitive with myself, just feel into what I need. But it's also recommended that you switch up the products, not every few days, but every few weeks. It depends on how long you're doing it for. But an initial gut cleanse on average for my clients is around 3 months. For me, it was 4 to 6 months before I really started to see a shift back in 2020. And now it's just this annual 4 to 6 weeks, sometimes longer. If I have had food poisoning or something, or suspect I might have picked something up or test. I've never tested positive for parasites since 2020, but I know that testing can be limited for infections like that. So I didn't really do any prep work, just eased into it. I started a bit slowly with the herbs. I didn't go straight up to the full dose because I know that's a little bit silly, but I did have some detox reactions, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's not a problem if you don't have them, but it's also not a major issue if you do have them. It just shows that something's changing, but it shouldn't be awful. It shouldn't be that you feel absolute crap the full time. And you could always just slow down on increasing the doses of them. You could always speed up with the detox support. So previously and with clients, I would do a few weeks, and with clients, sometimes a few months of actually mineral balancing, getting the thyroid and metabolism in check, making sure that we are opening the detox and drainage pathways, getting the lymph system, the liver, the bowels flowing a little bit better before we even touch any gut protocol. So for myself, I knew I didn't need that. I sweat regularly, sweat every day. I have daily bowel movements. I do my lymphatic massages, so I didn't think that I needed extra. And it passed anyway within a few days, just some mild symptoms. The main ones were my skin, which is typically my magic mirror into my gut anyway. So my skin for those first few days was breaking out a little bit more. And the other symptom that I notoriously get as well with a detox and cleanse, had it before, but extremely bad in previous years, is this feeling of hunger. I could be fine 1 minute, I could have eaten an hour ago, and then within a few minutes, I just feel so hungry. It feels like my blood sugar's crashing. I just need to eat right now. This can be a sign of candida and parasites dying off. And I had that very mildly this time round for a few days. And then the other thing was just, I think about a week in, I felt like I was getting a bit run down. It was just before my holiday as well, and my throat was a little bit scratchy, my glands were a little bit swollen on one side of my neck, and nothing ever came of it. It didn't actually turn into a full-blown cold or flu, but it was just a bit run down, so I just listened to my body. I didn't increase the dose around that time. I had extra sleep, supported my liver a little bit more. I think I added a coffee element in on that day. So that's what you want to do, is just balance it out. You either back off on the dosage a little bit, or you speed up your body's elimination of the toxins. Because as the bugs die, they release toxins, viruses, heavy metals, mycotoxins into the system. And if your liver, your filter, isn't flowing properly, your liver requires a ton of energy and a ton of nutrients in order to do that. Amino acids, B vitamins, herbs can support it too. But if it's getting clogged up and it's either too much coming in or not enough coming out because it doesn't have the basic resources it needs to do its job, the toxins will start to try and escape elsewhere. So it can come through the skin, you can get headaches. It usually is things that you're already prone to just coming to the surface. Or there's like little things that you don't really have, but you know it's linked to the gut protocol. There's classic things like bloating. Bowels can go either way, can get a little bit more bloated, gassy. Some people feel a little bit sick for the first few days. So with my one-to-one clients, I'm always there via email in that meantime to guide them through if they're not really sure what to do. If it's their first time round, I will be guiding them through. But for myself, I just need to back off the dose a little bit, speed up my detoxification, make sure I'm hydrated. It's really important to be having regular bowel movements during that time as well. If you're constipated, you kind of need to get things moving a little bit beforehand. This is where coffee enemas can come in useful, and the use of supplements that support motility and everything. But yeah, that was the first week. Didn't really feel great, but didn't feel terrible. And then after that, I just really started to notice an improvement. Nothing major because I feel good in general, so it's hard for me with things like this to feel night and day difference. But I definitely felt my skin clear up from that initial breakout. Energy was good, and didn't see any visible parasites this time round. I have in previous years, but it's just a good thing for my peace of mind knowing that I've done my little protocol now for the rest of the year. Might do the next one earlier on in 2026, we shall see. But I just wanted to share with you what it looks like. Again, the actual exact product names and everything I won't be sharing, and I share that with clients. And I actually, a big thing for me is teaching clients how to navigate things like this, even for long-term support, so they can guide themselves or their families through this too. I don't want to be working with them and having them like have to come to me every single time for guidance. I can give them the tools and the resources and different products to consider, and they know how to navigate it then for the rest of their lives. And they can be really intuitive and listen to what their body needs. And it's just, yeah, part of the work that I do. But if you are needing support with it, if you're wanting someone to just guide you through, you want to do the stool testing, figure out what's going on, you want to make sure that your detox pathways are open and that you're doing it in the right way, because not all gut protocols are created equal. I have so many clients, they've told me I've done that before, I've done probiotics, I've done berberine before, it didn't work. And it turns out they did like 4 weeks on one product at a very low dose, and they didn't do all of the other necessary steps. That's not comparable to the type of protocols that I'm doing. Everyone is different, but there are some like general rules. If you want me to do a podcast episode on some common mistakes I see with gut healing, please let me know. Send me an email or DM on Instagram. I'm at Viva Natural Health. I would love to do that because there are so many things, and even mistakes that I've made previously, like not taking a binder, not doing it for long enough, just being on the verge of results and stopping too prematurely, but then also on the other side, just keeping going with gut protocol after gut protocol and not looking at the bigger picture, which for me was exposure to toxic mold. I was never going to get the results that I wanted as long as I was still in that environment and not addressing that whole side of things. So yeah, I feel great. I have ticked that off my little health maintenance list for the year. If you are wanting support, I am now taking on clients for the rest of autumn, for the final part of the year. This is the time to lock in when it comes to your health. It's going to feel so good for you to start the new year, 2026, already with a few months of work and progress and improvements under your belt, so you can really just have a plan of action, continue into the new year when everyone else is just starting to get on track. You're already on it, you're already feeling the shifts. It's going to take a few weeks sometimes a few months to notice a difference, depending on how long you've had issues for. But it is totally possible to heal from these stubborn symptoms. I've been there. I've now supported hundreds of clients through this type of work as well. So if you're interested, links to my Restoring Energy program, aka Reprogram, will be in the episode show notes. More information on there. You're going to get access to one-to-one coaching calls with me. There is a lab test included within the package, which is the hair tissue mineral analysis. So we're going to see what's going on with your mineral levels, because that's important to address if you want to heal your gut. As I said earlier, minerals like zinc or stomach acid production, so you want to make sure you're addressing that arm of it as well. But frequently asked questions, payment plan details are all linked on the website, and there's also a link to schedule a free 30-minute enrollment call. No obligation, let's just chat about your situation, make sure it's a good fit. I only take on limited number of clients every few months because I'm working with you very closely for those 6 months, and if it's a good fit, we'll chat about what that would look like. And I have helped so many people, just giving you a few examples of how gut work has impacted people's lives. I've had clients go from 10 plus years of horrible cystic acne to clear skin. I've had clients free themselves from chronic pain after struggling to even go about daily tasks like washing their face in the sink at the end of the day. I've had others go from eating a really restricted, limited diet, autoimmune paleo, just super restricted, to enjoying food and their life again. So if there's something that sounds exciting to you, it piques your interest, then get in touch and I would love to guide you through. Everything is in the show notes. If you have any questions, please let me know, and then I'll see you here next week for the next episode.